Hi, I'm Jean DeFinney, and I'm a 30-plus year veteran of the Central Florida real estate community. I'm here with my partner, Edson DeFreitas. Together we make up the New Day Real Estate Group at Kylan Realty. And we're here today to talk to you about the most important questions to ask a home inspector. Because very often you are going to be asked to refer a home inspector to your buyer. And of course, I like to give them more than one inspector. I make it very clear that they do not have to use my inspector, and they have every right to choose one of their own. And I'll often give them a couple of different names. And if I have an inspector that I know does a lot of work in a specific area, community, I will certainly point that out to them, because if that gives them experience in that community. One of the first things to do when you're working with an inspector and a new inspector, you ask him quite literally, how long have you been doing inspections? What's your education? I'd like to see a copy of your license. Are you insured? All those nasty questions. And are you a member of ASHI, the American Society of Home Inspectors, or the new one is the International Society of Home Inspectors. And that's a big one. I really don't like using an inspector or recommending an inspector that's not a member of either the American Society or the International Society, because that means that they've done some continuing education, they pay money to be a part of that, and they're just more professional as a general rule. Don't be afraid to ask them, what are you going to charge? Do you have a reinspection fee, and what would that run? The other thing is, do you do the WDO inspection, or do you have a person that will come with you that does that? What is their charge? Are they licensed? Are they insured? Lots of questions to cover yourself. Do they do the wind mitigation and the 4-point inspection? That's an important question.
How does that were built before up to 2005 or earlier needs to do it, right? Because it can give you some discount on your
credit
home
on insurance. Yeah, so it's good to do that. If you can do this all in one time, that saves you maybe the effort of having to go out if you're the point of entry person.
So basically, if you try to sell any property that is it was built 2005 or earlier previously, then always try automatically
to mention the wind mitigation and the 4-point inspection. So because the insurance company will, but you come before them, so it makes you look that much better as a realtor. How much time does it take to book? How much lead time do you need to book the inspection? And do you work on Saturdays? That's a big question for us.
I do have one guy that I use and I always recommend. You know him, Jared. Mm-hmm. He usually works pretty well. Doesn't matter if it's a weekend, but right now he always tells me, once you're working on a deal, try to tell me, even before you even close the deal, try to get a day.
Yeah.
Because on this hot market, it's really
busy.
Hard to get.
I've also had inspectors charge more to come out on a Saturday, so that's why it's important to find out if they work on and what that charge is, if there's a special charge for it. Some will just say, oh yeah, I work on Saturdays, and all of a sudden they add $50 to the inspection report, and you're going, what happened here? And your buyer's looking at you like, why didn't you tell me this? And it's
because of course it's your fault.
It's your fault, and so bottom line is that can be a point of contention that you don't need in a deal.
And have you ever had any issue between if a house was frame or block?
Oh God, yes.
How to deal with that?
How to deal with that? Yeah, there are some inspectors I have had. I won't name them, but they're still working here in the Central Florida area, and they just have a real negative feeling about frame, and they will from the beginning do nothing but say, I don't know why anybody would buy this frame house in Florida because it has termites. Because it has a propensity to get termites or carpenter ants more, or if there's a hurricane, God forbid. They literally scare your buyer off. And I've had one buyer walk away from a property that they really liked in their price range, in a nice area that was really well built, but it was frame. And that was all from the inspector's negative remarks at the beginning of the inspection review. So, you really need to kind of get a feel for how they are, what their thoughts are about frame versus block. If they're going to give a fair evaluation to frame versus ply, because there are lots of frame homes, and for many people, especially first-time home buyers, the only thing they can afford are frame homes. So they're still standing. They're still, they're ones that are standing just as long as the block houses are. So they deserve a fair chance anyway. It will cost more in insurance.
And another thing as well, some realtors don't realize that the inspector, doesn't just see the property itself, but they also see the lot. If you have any issue with the land, soggy stuff like that,
yes, they point
and
on.
they also usually point that out as well, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, that they're very good about that sort of thing, and you want them to be very good about that sort of thing. You also want to find out if they'll go up on the roof, especially a tile roof. Do they know how to walk on a tile roof? Because there's a very specific way that you need to, if you are going to walk on tile, or if not, you can loosen the tile and possibly even make a tile slip, or God forbid, hurt themselves. I had a realtor, a buyer's agent realtor on one of my listings whose inspector would not get on the roof. And he said, I can see as much from the roof from just walking around in a big, and take pictures. And the buyers were very, very disappointed. And they were really upset with the buyer's agent, who obviously had not vetted that inspector. I did hear them talking. She was the one who had referred that. You also want to ask that inspector if they actually inspect the roof by getting on it or not, especially a tile roof, because there's a very specific way that an inspector or anyone needs to walk on those tiles if they have to. And if not, they can cause slippage of the tile, or possibly break a tile, or even get hurt themselves. And I know the use of drones, that's great. Ask them, do you use drones? And if so, make sure that the buyer is comfortable with that.
Actually, it's funny because I was representing a seller.
Mm-hmm.
The inspector came doing the normal inspection, and he actually fell from the attic.
Oh no!
He was trying to walk on the attic. He right on the master. I just got a text the next morning from the agent say, so hey, oh actually no, I'm sorry. He did not contact me. I went to the property after the inspector left, just to see the property how it was, and then I saw a huge hole on the master bedroom. I called the guy like, hey, did you see this?
Please tell me it was a vacant house.
Oh yes, it was a vacant
That's good, at
house.
least.
They used their insurance and fixed it,
it.
but it was kind of scary.
Yeah,
It's
of
like,
course it was.
just letting you know that was not here before. It was your inspector that did it.
It's one of the reasons that I do suggest that that the realtor do at least be there for the review, and especially in their buyers too.
I was gonna ask you, with your experience, do you think we as a realtor need to be there in person, or just giving the keys and that's it?
Okay, I know you guys don't want to hear this, but absolutely take the time to go to your inspections. 30 years of inspections have taught me so much valued information, that I've gotten from these inspections. I can't even begin to tell you. It's also helped me on my own home and my own maintenance, etc. So I really recommend it. I know it's time consuming. And then, of course, if your buyers are there, you need to hear what that inspector is saying to the buyers and be there to mitigate anything that needs to be handled. The other thing that with dealing with inspectors, I've had one where a buyer's agent, a new buyer's agent, a new agent, and representing the buyer, and she had recommended this inspector that she didn't know. And so we're all at the inspection, and we're getting everything finished, and we suddenly realize he hasn't done anything with the roof. And so I'm not going to bring it up. I'm not going to say, hey, buddy, you need to get on the roof, on my seller's roof, and check it out. Instead, finally, the buyer said something about, don't they look at the roof? And he goes, oh, well, I don't go on roofs because I don't want to do any damage to roofs. And he went into all the stuff that you can do. You can make the granules fall off from shingles, or you could crack a
But
tile
how do you
roof.
see if you have any leaking?
And then he said, and frankly, I get dizzy up high. I don't do it, but I take lots of pictures, and I can see all the roof that I need to see from just walking around. And I was in awe. Of course, I'm representing the seller. Fine with me. If you just want to look around and say, oh, okay, that roof looks good, fine. And the buyers were upset, legitimately, and I didn't blame them for being upset, but they were upset not so much at the inspector, but at the realtor who had referred the inspector. So that's why I always say vet them, vet them, vet them. It's not, it's going to always help you in the end to take that time to ask them some questions. And if they don't like answering them when you're trying to get them business and work, then you probably don't need to use them anyway.
And once you actually talking to the
Mm-hmm.
inspector,
Mm-hmm.
what would be a good question to ask him right there?
Okay, one of the things that I want to know, and this is part of the vetting really, is do you take pictures? Because after.
No, he's doing the inspection right now. What kind of question you should ask him as he's in the property? Like, hey, is it okay at the attic? Is it okay?
Well, of course, when he goes through the review, he's going to go through all of those things. Now, if he brings up something, I immediately say to him, how do you have a solution for this? Like I had one that there was a little bit of black mold condensation inside a closet where the AC unit was, and I just asked, is this something that can be handled with just Clorox and and kills? And he said, absolutely. This is minor. This is nothing big. But if I hadn't asked that question, it was going to be written up as
a
mold.
mold.
So anything that you see that's a negative, don't question him about it and what would his solution be. Does he recommend any contractors? Does he have some people that he's worked with before that he recommends? All of that will help. Also, it's important when you vet them, and this will come back to play with this, does he take pictures? Because once you see this, and these buyers and yourself, and you're walking around this house, and you're seeing he's pointing this out, and you leave, and then you get the report, and wait a minute, what was that? That was what's fascia? Where was this? But if they have a picture of it right there with it, you know right away. And that generally helps the buyers not panic. And if they do have a question, you have something easily to refer back to their agent or to the inspector or to a contractor if it needs to be repaired. So I think pics are a very important part and help us out tremendously as realtors.
And usually, what would be how long they take to send you the report back after they've done the inspection?
Good question. And they're all different about that. I have one guy that brings his laptop and he takes the pictures and he downloads them right there. And it does take a little longer at the property. I usually allow another 30 minutes to an hour, but you walk away with copies of the report. That's one way to handle it. I have others that are good ones, and it takes 2 to 3 days to get it. And now with this hot market, that might have actually increased to 4 or 5 days. So that is a good question from the beginning when you vet your inspector. How long should I get the buyers or tell whatever the sellers they're going to be waiting for this long for the report?
Oh, especially because you have the clause in the contract that you have so many days
you
to
might
do
have
the
to
inspection.
you might have to get an extension on that. So from the very beginning, get a feel for that. Another thing from the very beginning is ask them about what counties do you work in, and do you have areas that you've done a lot of work in, and have you done a lot of do you do a lot of construction, or for new construction, or do you kind of have a tendency to do more with the existing homes? So some of them actually have more of a specialty than you realize, and they don't even realize it until you start asking questions. And if I have a guy who said, "Oh, I love doing construction," I used to be a contractor, or my son's a contractor. So that's a good thing to make a mental note that when you sell new construction, this would be a great guy. So it's all about vetting, just having a conversation. You don't have to put them on the hot seat, but you just, tell them, listen, I'm trying to follow.
So you don't get into the hot seat.
You don't get in the hot seat. Absolutely. None of us like being in that hot seat. Another thing is I want to know about follow-up. After the inspection, what if if I'm the buyer, or if I'm the buyer's rep, can the seller's rep call you with questions about the inspection, or text you in today's world, or email you? I'm showing my age here. And can the buyers themselves call you and ask questions? Any good inspector, or get in touch with you and ask questions. Any good inspector will absolutely say yes. I have some that say, but they've got the report, they've got all the answers there. Well, no, not necessarily. And I've certainly had situations where we did have questions, even with the report. Obviously, the better the report, the less
questions you need to ask.
And that's what we all like, less time involved. So that's about the ins and outs of questions to ask your home inspector. And I'm sure you'll have some of your own. Do anything you can to protect yourself and to protect your buyer and your seller. And
try not get into the hot seat.
Yeah, don't get into that dreaded hot seat with the home inspection. So we wish you the best on all your future home inspections, no matter if you're representing the buyer or the seller, or better yet, both parties. Take care. Have a good day. Thanks for being with us. Goodbye.